Welcome to all our webinar attendees. Our guest speaker today is David Cole, who is recognized throughout the country as one of the foremost experts on retirement plans for individuals seeking to diversify into real estate. He specializes in structuring self-directed 401k plans that enable his clients to have 100% checkbook control of every penny of their retirement money. As a professional speaker, he consistently earns rave reviews for his in-depth knowledge and for his ability to take complicated financial concepts and break them down into easily understood blocks of information so that his listeners can have the confidence to make the right decisions based on their personal circumstances. And now, Mr. Cole.
Before we begin today with some information that I think you're going to find extremely interesting, let's take just a moment to look back over the last few years. This roller coaster ride that we've had in the economy has really left millions of people sick to their stomach. It has wiped out more personal wealth than any other catastrophic financial thing in our history. Nobody expected this to happen. It was the perfect storm financially. Basically, the stock market has wobbled and dropped with any negative rumor of any kind. Politicians continue to prop up failing institutions with billions of our tax dollars. Banks have developed financial amnesia. They've forgotten that their primary purpose is to lend the money and be a tool for people to use. It's really been a mess. And if you've watched the news or read online or the newspapers at all, you know that one of the victims of this has been retirement plans. People have lost trillions of dollars in these plans, and frankly, that's their hopes, their dreams, their financial security for the future. So there's a lot of people that are looking for answers. They want alternatives. And it may be that you're finding quite a few people that are looking at precious metals as a way of diversifying in their retirement plan money and protecting their future wealth. However, most people, when they're looking to do this, are looking to do it within the context of an IRA. And that works, as you know. There are certain allowable precious metals to be invested in within an IRA. But one thing that seems to bother people a little bit, maybe you'll agree, is the fact that they're required by the custodian to hold those precious metals at a depository, usually that's in some other state and city. They never physically see their metals. They just have to know and trust that they're there. And for some people, that's just not enough. That can be a deal breaker for them. So what we want to talk about today is some good news. The fact is that your clients can take physical possession of precious metals if they're using the correct type of retirement plan. And so a lot of people say, well, what do you mean the correct type of retirement plan? It's an IRA, because that's all they've ever heard about. That's all they've been told exists, when in fact that's not true. They have a second option that they could choose to operate within that they, in most cases, will find much more attractive to use because they have the freedom and flexibility that an IRA generally does not give them. So this good news is not new news, although it may be new news to you and your clients. In fact, it's actually 10 years old. It happened clear back in 2002 when Congress changed some rules and they introduced a simplified version of an old favorite. What they did is they took the 401k, which has been around since 1981, and they modified it. They simplified it to make it attractive for people like you and I, either a single person or a married couple. We can use this plan and enjoy the benefits that this plan gives us. Now, before you get too excited, I do need to let you know that this individual 401k plan is not for everybody. There are a couple of basic rules that Congress decided should apply to the 401k to, in effect, qualify a person to have the plan. The first qualification rule is that to have this individual 401k plan, you must be involved in some kind of entrepreneurial activity. So if a person was working full-time for a business as their employee, and they had on the side, they were doing something, eBay auctions regularly, they were a consultant, They were making something and selling it. Perhaps their spouse was a part-time realtor. Between the two of them, if they're involved in any kind of entrepreneurial activity, the attempt to make money for themselves through this activity, they do qualify to have a 401k. Now, the inverse of that is perhaps a retired couple that doesn't have any activity. They don't want to do anything. They just want to travel around the country and see the grandkids. Without any on-the-side business activity, they would not qualify for the individual 401k plan. So it's important to know that distinction. However, there's one more rule. This entrepreneurial activity cannot involve full-time employees. And the tax law defines a full-time employee as one that would work 1,000 hours or more per year for this activity. And by the way, activity is not an entity. A lot of people get confused and think, well, to be in business, or a definition of business is that I'm a limited liability company, or I'm a C corporation, or I'm a partnership. That's not what the law requires. It says entrepreneurial or business activity allows a person to have a 401k. So with that being said, we've got to go into some of the dry and boring history and tax legislation, tax code supporting this, so that you know this is a legitimate right under law that a person can exercise. So it's actually the Department of Labor that has oversight over retirement plans. Now, they do this in cooperation with the IRS, but really the IRS is an enforcement and revenue collection agency. So really in first position, it is the Department of Labor. So what we're going to do is our first step, we're actually going to go to the Department of Labor website where we can start to consider some of this information together. Oh, by the way, before we do that, let's just talk about a little bit of the history of this. Actually, it started out in 2001. Congress put together a massive, I mean enormous piece of tax legislation, and they called it Economic Growth and Tax Relief Reconciliation Act. Contained within this huge number of pages was the modifications that they took a 401k and simplified it, creating this individual plan. Now, they still argued for about another 4 years about certain things and filing requirements, etc. They finally made up their mind, and in 2006, the Pension Protection Act was passed, and that really defined and clarified how these individual 401ks would operate. So really from about 2006 is when these plans really gained some traction. So now that we have the history out of the way, let's go ahead and go to that Department of Labor website, and we'll start there. All right, so here's the screenshot from the website. It talks about 401k plans for small business. Down there towards the bottom, it says establishing a 401k plan. Now, the underlining and the blue box that I did that's not on the website. I just wanted to draw your attention to those important points. So let's read the first sentence together. It says, when you establish a 401k plan, you must take certain basic actions. One of your first decisions will be whether to set up the plan yourself or to consult a professional or financial institution. Now, if you're going to do this, there are 4 steps that they point out that you have to do. That's in the blue box. It says adopt a written plan document. So obviously there's paperwork involved. Arrange a trust fund for the plan's assets. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Develop a record-keeping system and provide this information to anybody that's participating. Well, that's pretty easy to do because that would be yourself, and if you're married, your spouse. So that is what's on the Department of Labor information website that I want to draw your attention to. But I want you to now understand the importance of the word you, what they're really saying here, the importance of you. So let's talk about the first thing. You, or your client, are the trustee of the plan. This means there's no custodian involved. There's no IRA custodian that buys the precious metals, that has them shipped to a depository, that files every year. Is not required inside of an individual 401k plan because you or your spouse step into that position. The second part of being you in the plan, the trustee, is that allows you to choose any investment that you want to make. Now, that means that anything it's allowable. When it comes to precious metals, as you know, there is a very strict list of what a retirement plan can and cannot invest in, and that list is subject to change. So whatever that current list is, a person needs to adhere to that, and that would be considered an allowable investment. So it doesn't matter whether it's real estate or precious metals, there may be some qualifiers or certain restrictions a person needs to be aware of. We talked a little bit that these plans give you more freedom and flexibility. Let's talk about that. You as the trustee can increase what we call your investment horsepower by actually consolidating your plans together. Perhaps you have some old IRAs, maybe an old 401k where you used to work. If you're married, your wife may have something similar, your spouse rather. Whatever the case is, you can bring all those together down into the one single plan. Now, there is an exception to that, and the most notable exception is a Roth IRA. So if you or your client has a Roth IRA, they have to play by themselves. Congress says no, they cannot be put inside of the individual 401k plan. By the way, these privileges that apply to you also apply to your spouse, as if they have these various plans, they can roll them down into the same account. And the cool part is that because you are the trustee of the plan, you have checkbook control of every penny inside the 401k. If you want to make an investment, you make it the name of your 401k. That's what's the title on your checkbook, and you simply write the check for that investment. Makes it very easy to do. Now, people are say, well, that's really interesting, Dave. I didn't know the Department of Labor was involved, but they still come back and say, what does the IRS have to say? Because that's who everybody sort of focuses on, is the IRS. So let's go into, here's a screenshot from publication 560, Retirement Plans for Small Businesses. Now, notice it doesn't list 401k plan under the title. Well, it really does, because a 401k plan in the tax code is called a qualified plan. It's a qualified pension plan. So now you have a little tax lesson. Anytime you see qualified plan, you know that that can mean the 401k. So in publication 560, they say that you have a one participant qualified plan if it covers you and your spouse, or you and your spouse rather own the entire business, whether incorporated or unincorporated. So they're saying as long as it's just you or you and your spouse and you have business activity, whether incorporated or just operating in your personal name, that is the definition of a one participant plan. But let's go ahead and hear it directly in the words of the IRS. Back in 2008, the individual 401ks were still fairly new to the IRS, so they wanted to train some of their employees, their auditors, their revenue agents. So they did a telephone workshop that they attended. And in here they were talking about these new individual plans. About halfway down in the paragraph it says, talking about the different names like solo Ks or unit Ks or individual Ks, it says they're all different names for the same thing. They're all regular, plain old vanilla 401k plans that only have one participant. And that participant can be the person and his or her spouse. So let's go on to the next part, the comment that they made I thought was interesting. They said the one participant 401k plan is not a new type of plan. It is a traditional 401k plan covering only one employee. It says the plans have the same rules and requirements as any other 401k plan, and it says that these plans really started having a lot of interest because of EGTRA back in 2002. All right, so basically again, that's just a brief view that these are real plans. They exist in the code. They are another option for people outside of using an IRA that may make them feel a lot more comfortable, because as the trustee and controlling the checkbook, remember, they will make the investment and they will physically control investment, whether it's a building lot or it's precious metals. They will be in their possession and control. I do need to add some disclaimers to this information today. This is very precise area of law. Tax laws regarding IRAs or 401ks can be complicated, so we want to make sure that anybody that utilizes any type of retirement plan for their own investing talks to their financial planner, their attorney, their CPA, or their investment advisor. And the information that we're providing today is really educational information only. It's not meant to be investment, legal, or tax advice in any way. And as you know, the tax law is very precise and very limited when it comes to precious metal investments. And so here is just a screenshot of the things that currently are in the code. So I'm sure that if you're a precious metals broker, the company you're working with is very particular about this. They follow this very, very closely. And of course, everyone has to realize that tax law can and does change. So certainly this is subject to change at any time. This code was issued, or this substantial authority in the tax code was issued regarding IRAs. Because this was put out there, there was no reason to translate it and say 401ks. So this exists in the 408 section of the code under IRAs, but this is the same list of allowable precious metals that a 401k would also operate under. So the important thing to take away from this information today is that you have two choices. Your clients have two choices. And as long as they have entrepreneurial activity and it's legitimate, either they or their spouse, they really do have a plan in the individual 401k that will give them greater freedom and flexibility and satisfy the need they have for hands-on control of their investing. So when you look at it, investing in precious metals is really no different than, again, investing and buying a building lot and just holding it. Because as the trustee of your 401k, you take physical possession of both of those types of investments, don't you? If you buy a building lot, you own it. You can go stand on your lot and look at it. You can build a house on it and sell it. You could sell it to somebody under a contract and take payments on it. You physically control it, and there's no difference with precious metals. The precious metals are shipped to you. You have them for your safekeeping, and you have to determine the best way to keep those safe and maintain records. At some point down the road, especially at the point where you begin to take minimum distributions out of your plan when you're 70 and a half, you're going to have to provide a valuation of those precious metals. That's required of any investment of any retirement plan. So this just gives you another alternative that for yourself or some of your clients may make you a lot more comfortable and a lot more excited about making precious metals a part of your portfolio. So in conclusion, I hope that this has really opened your eyes to this new alternative. It's provided you a solution for some of your clients that maybe have held back investing because they did not like the thought that their metals were sitting somewhere else that they didn't know where. So what you want to do, if you'd like to have more information on this, you would want to contact the individual that provided you this presentation, discuss this further with them, get up to speed with them, and have their assistance in setting up a individual 401k plan for yourself and or your clients. So again, I've appreciated your time today. Perhaps we'll be able to meet each other down the road in the near future. Thank you much.